Welcome to the channel. Welcome to today's run through of all the latest Manchester United news and transfer updates, keeping you right up to date with everything. I'm Jamie. Before getting into it, smash a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and let's jump straight into it. So, been a lot of talk over the last 24 hours regarding the manager situations, and a lot of it I think is recency bias. We lost a game. I agree with some of you in the comments yesterday. We lose against Leeds, and it wasn't really it was an unconvincing loss as well, if there is such a thing, where it was really, really bad performance as well as the result. And then lo and behold, we start getting manager talk, but then also a bit of recency bias because Areola's then, who seems to be the name doing the rounds at this particular moment in time, announced that he is going to be leaving Bournemouth at the end of the season. So this firstly came from iPaper, saying that Manchester United have Areola high on their shortlist, and as he is coveted by Crystal Palace, but sources close to the Spaniard believe he would be a contender at Liverpool and Newcastle if either decide to make a change. Arne Slot and Eddie Howe are under pressure after underperforming this season. Sources have suggested that Man United were close to offering Michael Carrick the permanent role, but Areola's availability may shift their thinking, and we're going to go through the Carrick news in a second. But do you think Areola, firstly, get in the comments, do you think he would be a contender, and do you think that Man United have changed their stance and their feelings towards Michael Carrick because of his availability? I don't think so. I'm calling BS on that because it's been known for a very long time that he could potentially be leaving Bournemouth at the end of the season because his contract's out, and in his contract there's an expiry date which hasn't changed. And I do think that they would have been conversations by now if they did really have Areola as part of their plans, unless he's been delaying or putting off conversations and stuff. But it's been known for a very, very long time that Areola was potentially going to be out of contract in the summer. So I don't think the fact that he's now suddenly available makes Man United change their feelings towards any manager. So I don't necessarily think that that's, I struggle to believe that story, because I'd like to hope that United already knew that potentially he could be a manager that's available this summer. Same with Silva, who's potentially out of contract as well. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on it. I do think that that's a little bit of putting two and two together. Areola's leaving. We need a manager. Let's sort of put a story out there, because Areola has always been on the list of potential candidates, though. But give us your thoughts. So, what would you take Areola ahead of Carrick, or ahead of some of the other names that we're linked with? Because really, the only other names at this particular moment in time is Carrick or Nagelsmann, and there's no real solid connections with Nagelsmann at this moment in time. There's rumours that potentially he could be on the list, but realistically, there's not anything concrete to suggest that we are going down that route. But Areola, what are your thoughts? I think it'd be interesting. I think it would be interesting. I'm going to share my thoughts actually when we go through the rest of the news. But on Areola, though, Fabrizio Romano did say, at the moment, I am not aware of Man United negotiating with Areola. Then if you ask me, would he like to be the next Manchester United manager this summer or in the future, I'm told that he would be open to that. And I'm sure many managers across the globe would be open to coming to Manchester United. Some might not. But yeah, I don't necessarily think that there's much going on between that, other than Areola has always been on the list of potential manager candidates. I don't think the fact that he's now announced that he's going to be leaving should necessarily change United's thought process, because they would have been aware for a very long time that he's potentially going to be available in the summer anyway. Hope I've explained my thoughts potentially on that. Holy shit. So we've been waiting all week, in fact, for 3 weeks, to find out what on earth is going on with Harry Maguire's situation. Just interrupting myself here. Maguire will serve an extra 1-game ban after being charged with misconduct by the FA. He will be suspended for the fixture versus Chelsea. That's literally just coming out at the time of recording this video from Laurie Whitwell. That is absolutely disgraceful. Not the fact that he's been banned. If he's done something wrong, he's clearly done something wrong that deserves him to be charged. But why have we had to wait 25 days to get that decision? And then it just adds to the misery on top of the fact that Martinez, in my opinion, was bullshittedly sent off in the last game. And by all accounts, United are going to be appealing that decision. But how long is that going to take? So effectively, no Maguire for Chelsea. He's going to serve another game ban, which is absolutely disgraceful that it's waited this long before the fixture. We're playing them on Saturday. And that's absolute BS from the FA and everybody involved in that. They've had 3 weeks to make that decision, and then we could have prepared differently for the game. To do it like 3 days before a game is absolutely ridiculous. And then even more ridiculous with the fact that Martinez got a BS red card as well. So potentially, if that doesn't get overturned, then, it's going to be Lenny Yoro. I was thinking about this. Lenny Yoro, Aiden Heaven would be an obvious one, but for some reason, Michael Carrick hasn't really given Aiden Heaven an opportunity or a chance. Or would he potentially pivot and put Luke Shaw at centre back and go with Mazraoui at left back, and then have Dallo, Yoro, Shaw, Mazraoui? Could be another way around it. Heaven forbid, I wouldn't want to see Malacia get a game, not at Stamford Bridge. It's a bogey place to go anyway, but that's literally just come out at the time of recording this video, so I've just reacted to it there. Get involved in the comments. Let me know what you think regarding that. Now, going back to the manager situation, obviously, Areola, again, get involved in the comments. Let me know what you think about Areola. Personally, I think it's, we've always known that he is a candidate and he's potentially going to be out of contract in the summer. So if United are now thinking, oh, well, he's available and jumping on that, I think they've not been planning properly. Now, the main candidate, though, is Michael Carrick. So Andy Mitten, very, very well connected Manchester United journalist. When he talks and has something to say, it's worth paying attention to because it is normally very, very well sourced. Following the defeat against Leeds, he said nothing has changed. If he takes Manchester United into the Champions League, he will keep the job. Manchester United have been and will continue to do their due diligence over the managerial possibilities, where coaches are likely to be in 1 year's time, 2 years' time, and that's exactly what they should be doing. The way it is at the moment, it works in Carrick's favour. Some of the people, for various reasons, World Cup or whatever, will not be available. People are pretty comfortable with Carrick, but he needs to get to that Champions League. So Andy Mitten, one of the best Man United journalists around, in my opinion, very connected at the club, is basically saying that if we get Champions League football under Michael Carrick, then he's going to get the job effectively. So if we don't get Champions, so it's Carrick's position at the moment to lose if we don't make Champions League football. And again, I'm going to share some thoughts in a second once we go through the rest of the news. Now, Fabrizio Romano has also chimed in saying that even after the Leeds game, which the referee also impacted, but the general feeling remains very positive around Carrick. They are very happy with him, his attitude, tactical decisions, approach, and his relationship with the players and the leaders within the dressing room. So Fabrizio Romano also suggesting that people within the club are very happy with Michael Carrick and everything that he's done, and obviously putting on up until the Leeds game. The Leeds game was so disappointing for me, not just because we lost, because we're going to lose games of football. I still think we're going to lose games of football between now and the end. It was just the manner of the defeat and the fact that we'd waited so long and they'd had this training camp and then we got served up an absolute pile of horse manure. That's what annoyed me more than anything. As you can tell, I'm probably still a little bit annoyed about it today. But before that, if we were having this conversation after the Arsenal game, then people would have given Michael Carrick the contract there and then. And I don't think we should flip just because we've had a bad performance in a bad game. I'm still on the, let's wait and see. Let's see what happens at the end of the season. But going off of these reports, it does fit. It's Michael Carrick's to lose, isn't it? I think that's the way I'm reading the stories at the moment. And Brian Robson even feels the same as well. So he said, I think Michael Carrick gets us, if Michael Carrick gets us in the Champions League, I think they should give him the job. He deserves it. From where we were when Michael came in, everybody's getting carried away saying he should only get it if we finish third. But for me, as long as he gets us to Champions League, he should get the job. So Brian Robson agreeing with the club narrative around, and what Andy Mitten's saying as well. So all roads are pointing towards Michael Carrick getting the full-time job if we get Champions League football, which still, in the cold light of day when you do analyse things a little bit different a few days after a disappointing result. As long as we've just still got to match whatever Chelsea do, as long as you don't lose this weekend, like if we draw minimum, hopefully a win, because it gives us a little bit of breathing space. But, we're United. We're going to make things hard for ourselves, aren't we? Let's be honest. That's in our DNA to not do things the easy way and make things smooth sailing. It's going to be nervy, I think, between now and the end of the season. But I do think we're hopefully going to get the job done. But as long as we match what Chelsea do, then it doesn't really matter. Chelsea lost. If we lose, then they're not gaining that points on us, and we are going to stay in those Champions Leagues positions. But I just want it to be comfortable and done and dusted. But that's not the United way, is it? The United way is to keep you on the edge of your seat till the last second and throw a few curveballs and throw a few things at you that are gonna directly piss you off and make you a little bit nervy and stuff. But how do you feel about Michael Carrick? Again, give us your thoughts in the comments around his situation. I've got a couple of thoughts regarding it, right? Like I do think that the club should still do their due diligence and still, look at candidates, because the one thing that worries me is we've been down the road before about hiring managers because they get Champions League, and that was always seen as the barometer. Well, if they get Champions League, they stay in their job, right? David Moyes, Van Gaal, Mourinho, Solskjaer, every manager up until this point when Ineos came in have all been held by that standard. If you don't make Champions League, there's a chance you're going to lose your job. And there was even debate under Ten Hag, because we finished so low in the league, but he still managed to get Europe and yeah, obviously the Europa League by winning the FA Cup. But he was probably the only one that wasn't sacked because of that. But he probably should have been in that summer, and that was a little bit of a mistake, obviously by Ineos coming in. But I don't necessarily think that's the right approach personally. Like what we're being told with Ineos is, they're going to hire a manager based on their football philosophy. So Ineos are going to come in and say, right, okay, we want to play this particular style of football. And then everything is set to align with that. So the manager and then the player recruitment, because it makes it easier from a club to get those decisions right if you are all in alignment. So if one person at the club, say Omar Barada, for example, is like, right, this is the way we're going to play football. And then that filters down through the entire staff and everyone else at United. This is how we're going to play. That then feeds into the scouts. The scouts then start looking for profiles to match that system. And, Christopher Vival, the recruitment and everything like that work. And it should be the same for the coach and the manager as well, because, we've suffered from just keeping managers just because of Champions League football. So I would like to hope that if they are going to keep Michael Carrick, it is because he is in alignment with their vision and not just because of finishing in Champions League, even though that would be a fantastic achievement for Carrick. And we don't know what the conversations are behind the scenes. We don't know whether he is in alignment with what's going on. The only people will know that will be Jason Wilcox and Omar Barada and Christopher Vival and the recruitment team and everything like that. We're not privy to those conversations, right? Because if behind the scenes he is actually saying, look, I want to play this particular style of football, but I can't do it because I don't have the player quality, because we know we still have a player quality issue and we are limited to how we can play and what style of football we can play because of the players that we have. In order to play a different style of football, we need to get a different profile of players in the team. So if that's all in alignment and they're going to give Carrick the job if he does make Champions League, and because it is almost impossible to turn down, I think if he does that and he's in alignment in that regards, then I'm cool with it. But if they're giving out jobs just because of Champions League football, then that's no different to what we were doing before, and I would have massive question marks around that. And I know it's a difficult decision to make at this, a different conversation to have actually at this moment in time because of the bad result and bad performance on Monday. If we, like I said, we were having this conversation again after Arsenal, you'd probably feel a little bit different. But the way I look at it is, if we get Champions League football, and as long as he is in alignment with what the club want to do going forward, and it's Michael Carrick and he ticks all the, he wants to play possession-based football or attacking football or counter-attacking football, whatever it is, whatever that vision is, and he's in alignment with that, then cool. But if we're doing it just out of sentiment because he makes Champions League football, I would be a little bit concerned about doing that, because I still think that we should be interviewing other managers, because you might find that Ariola's vision is actually more in tune with what Barada and what the club want to do, in which case I would like to see them make the decisions based on that. But get involved in the comments. I know you're going to have different thoughts and feelings regarding the situation, and we'll see where it goes. And hopefully, all being well, hopefully he does make Champions League football, and hopefully, maybe he does keep the job. But I would like to see something different though, because I know there is a big concern at the moment around the the style of play and things like that as well. But I do think, the jury's out on that for me, because is it a quality? I think still it is a player quality issue a lot of the times. But yeah, let me know what you think regarding that. Let's go through the transfer news. So this was an interesting piece actually that came out yesterday from Chris Wheeler and Nave Salt in the Daily Mail, saying that Manchester United are monitoring Bournemouth duo Eli Junior Kroupi and Marcos Senesi. So we know the Senesi story has been bringing that to you over the last few days. Apparently we are looking at him, free transfer, available, left-footed, left-sided centre-back. I think that is a concerning area of the pitch, considering Martinez is, his fitness record and discipline record, I'm going to say now, although I still think that it was a nonsense red card and hopefully will get overturned, but I wouldn't put anything past the FA, to be completely truthful with you, and their agenda against United, it feels, at the moment. But Kroupi, that's the second or third time he's been linked with us as well. Really interesting profile. I actually like him. He scored, obviously, the penalty against us when we played them recently. It's been in fantastic goal scoring form this season. I don't know whether there's any link between Areola and, obviously then getting linked with Bournemouth players, although I think this came out before the Areola sort of news, so I don't think there's any relation to, manager leaving, United get linked with loads of Bournemouth players. We have been linked with, obviously, Kroupi before, and Alex Scott. I really like Alex Scott as a potential midfield option. I know some of you have been saying that in the comments as well, working on a bit of a video around Alex Scott and his fit within the team and stuff. But yeah, that'll be interesting. We'll keep an eye on that. We obviously know that maybe we are looking for a forward. I think he can play in a few different positions in the attack as a striker and potentially on the wings as well. Obviously, with Xerxes goes, you want to bring in someone Premier League experience that's got a really good goal scoring record this season, is still young and developmental and ticks all of those boxes, then Kroupi would be a really interesting one. Senesi, we'll wait and see what happens regarding that. Now, in other news, this is another player that we've been linked with in the past, a little bit like Hjulmand yesterday, another Sporting player. It's Inácio. So Manchester United are closely monitoring Gonçalo Inácio after his standout season at Sporting, especially in the Champions League. Clubs like Liverpool and Chelsea and from Spain are also interested, with this 60 million release clause negotiable. I can't say that word. Again, Inácio is one of these players where we've constantly been linked with, even before Amrim. But wouldn't it be ironic, because there was a Hjulmand story yesterday and now we're getting linked with Inácio? Wouldn't it be such a Man United thing to do, to sign two Sporting players at a time when Ruben Amorim goes? That would just be a typical Man United move. But obviously last summer we were concentrating on the forward. We did actually, well, whether the rumours were true or not, we're heavily linked with Victor Gyökeres. So yeah, so there's something in that. But Inácio, Hjulmand, these sort of players we've been linked with even before Ruben Amorim came in. But what do you think of Inácio? And the narrative doing the rounds is we are potentially looking at a left-footed, left-sided centre-back. That seems to be the profile, because we've got links with, obviously, Senesi. We've got links with Lukiba. Indika, I think it is, from Roma, has been doing the rounds a few times as well. Inácio now, that side of the pitch that seems like the club are potentially really, really concerned about. He's a very similar profile when you look at their play styles to Lisandro Martinez. Is a little bit taller. I think he's around 6 foot or 6'1", so he's got the height advantage. But ironically, Martinez still shows up better aerially than Inácio. But if you want someone that can, that has a very similar play style to Lisandro Martinez, then Inácio, look at it, it's almost like a carbon copy of what their strengths and weaknesses are in terms of passing, forward passes, carrying, defensive duels. He's not a bad player. He's 24 as well. Martinez is 28. So, in terms of comparison and stuff, it would fit the bill if you wanted, somebody to come in as a Martinez replacement or backup, or, to potentially overtake him in the future, or if he's injured, all of that stuff. Then Inácio does actually stand out. And again, we have been linked with in the past. And the one place he doesn't stand out, though, is with his injury record. His injury record's pretty immaculate, to be fair. The odd game here and there, a couple of games last season, or 24-25, that was the last time. He had six games that he missed, 28 days, which is nothing in comparison to Martinez and his recent injury record and everything like that. So in terms of comparisons, wouldn't be a bad shout. I would want to see a little bit more credibility. That's coming from a South American judge that works for AS in Spain, but with the links to potentially Spanish clubs, maybe there's something in that. I think he would come up, if you are looking at somebody to come in as Martinez's replacement, then, Inácio stands out in that regards with the comparison. But yeah, we'll wait and see. I'd want to see a little bit more credibility personally where that story's coming from. It feels a little bit like all of a sudden starting to get linked with loads of Sporting players. Seems a little like I don't know, feels a little bit off to me is what I would say. But get involved in the comments, let me know what you think regarding that. Now, couple of exit news. So Chris Wheeler, Nath Solt said Bayinder's agreed personal terms with Besiktas, which is interesting. The deal should go through. And if the Turkish team can settle on a transfer fee with United, so it is looking more likely that Bayinder's going to be going in the summer, and then we do have a decision to make. So obviously, we know we want to sell Onana or do something with Onana. I don't know whether we'll be able to sell. Might be a loan with an option to buy or an obligation to buy, something like that, because of his salary and his pay rise. If we get Champions League football as well, I don't know if he's going to be willing to sacrifice some of that budget. So it might, but Onana, we want to remove Bayindagan, backup goalkeeper. Don't know whether we're doing anything with Tom Heaton, because our rumours potentially we are looking to do like another 1-year extension for Tom Heaton just to stay around the place and, provide maybe a little bit of stability in that area when you've got Sonny Lamans, who's young and new to the club. If you're then bringing in, another goalkeeper that's going to be new to the club, maybe keeping someone like Tom Heaton is not the worst idea as a third choice. We've got Vitek as well. What we're going to do with Vitek, because, is he going to be comfortable being a backup now he's played regular first team football, because he is only a young goalkeeper and he might want to go and play first team football now that he's experienced it. Will he be comfortable coming back in and being back up to Sonny Lamans, or do you think he could be good enough to potentially take Lamans out of the team? Let me know, because that's plausible. But yeah, it's going to be an area that we need to sort out in this summer, annoyingly, because we've got bigger issues to fix then. I think the backup goalkeeper now we've got Sonny Lamans, but it's going to give us another position that we need to strengthen in this summer, isn't it? But yeah, it does look likely that Bayinda's going to go. And then the other players, Ugarte, in the same report said Galatasaray, Juventus, Ajax and Napoli are far more likely to sign Manuel Ugarte than Newcastle this summer. So obviously there has been a lot of stories over the last couple of days regarding Ugarte and potentially been of interest. I think Villa are another club potentially as well, but Chris Wheeler and Nave Soap suggesting that actually he may be more likely to go overseas than to Newcastle, but we'll wait and see what happens regarding that. And then the final story I've got for you, if we go back to the Besiktas news and Bayinda, is a link with a Korean striker. So Manchester United and Tottenham are interested in signing the South Korean international striker Hugh Gai-oh. I may have butchered that pronunciation. Forgive me. The player is impressed since his move to Besiktas during the January transfer window. He joined the club for a fee of £14 million and has produced 6 goals and 2 assists in 9 matches since joining the club. Naturally, top clubs are keeping tabs on his progress, and that's come from a Turkish news outlet via Court Offside, suggesting that I think it was United and Tottenham potentially keeping an eye on this striker. I think he's actually got 9 goals now. I've played 10 games, 9 goals, 2 assists. Something of like that nature. So he's got another goal, I think, and another game since this report has come out. But interesting profile, 25, not one that I know an absolute ton about. I'm not going to lie to you. So get involved in the comments. If it's a player that you think could do a job as a rotation striker, I think you can play like, he likes running the channels, so maybe could fill in at the wing positions, but more of a centre forward, I would say, than like a winger. Seems to have a good goal scoring record since he's gone to Besiktas. Is that the right quality of player that we would need? Like if Xerxes goes and you want to bring in a backup striker or someone to, to come in and as a replacement for like Sesko to rotate around. Who knows? Keep an eye on it. Again, one of those stories, I think, though, where I'd want to see a little bit more credibility than Turkish news outlets, because they've not been very accurate, in my opinion. But get involved in the comments. Give us your thoughts on that down below. Give us your thoughts on all the other topics discussed in today's video. That's you all up to date with the latest news and transfer updates. Don't forget to smash a like on the video on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. See you in the next one.